Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 6, season 4 of the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Evening, Richie. Well, it was another great weekend of footy with yet more upsets. How was your weekend, and what did you think of round 3?
Weekend was really good. Thanks, Brad. I hope yours was as well. I really enjoyed the footy. Obviously, when the Warriors performed the way they did, it's always great. And for the first time in a long time, we sit in the 4, like the show title says, and looking down on all the peasant teams below us.
Top 4 it's a beautiful place.
How good.
Long may it last, hopefully. But while we're here live on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m., you can also catch our show at your convenience on the podcast. Go on iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places, and just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything that you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of round 3, and an update on our tips. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we've got for each other. We'll then preview the Warriors-Bulldogs game, and then the rest of the round 4. And then we'll end the night with Jacko's favorite part, which is Super League. And I see Jacko's here. And Simon, evening, guys. Remember to send us questions and comments throughout the show, and we'll do our best to answer them the best we can. I see Mikey's here as well. Evening, Mikey. And we may as well jump straight into it, Richie.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first, probably the biggest news was John Sattler passed away this week, aged 80. South Rabbitohs prop. For me, as a connoisseur of props, he kind of personified toughness back in those days. You know, he was famously known for playing with a broken jaw in the Rabbitohs. I think it was the 1970 grand final against Manly. Huge, sending a lot of thoughts and prayers to his family in that, but not the best news to hear to start off the week. But what's your take? I know you're older than me, so you probably watched a lot of Sattler, you know, mate. So
not that much older than you, champ. But yeah, obviously very sad news for rugby league community. The legend that is John Sattler passing away. So thoughts to go to his family. I know the Rabbitohs are going to pay tribute this week, wearing a broken Rabbitoh logo on their shirt, throwing
That's
back
right.
to, I think, 1970 grand final. The one you spoke of earlier, where he had the broken Rabbitoh logo on his shirt. Funnily enough, they're playing against Manly this weekend as well.
Yeah. Not the best news, but kind of the best timing, I guess. It's probably the horrible way to say it with all that. But I see Hammer's here as well, and he also mentioned Kyle White passed away 53. Another one, which is unfortunate to hear. And Nicholas is here, and he said Jacko's just wrong. Super League's awesome. Exciting gameplay and great atmospheres. I like the atmosphere. There's nothing better than an English crowd with all the sports they have. It just depends on how my team goes, on how excited or unexcited I am. But next bit of news, Newcastle Knights, they're rumoured to be looking at them into the market to sign middle forwards to address their shortage due to injuries and suspensions. I had a quick Goog before the show to try to see some free agents middles, and I don't really see anyone out there that could fix the problem. So I think like if they would have to try to talk to another club, you would think in a perfect situation, instead of the Roosters getting Nathan Brown, the Knights would have tried to get him. But yeah, it is what it is. What's your take on the Knights having to already shell out? We're not even a month into the season yet, and they're already in strife injury-wise.
Well, Nathan Brown would never have gone there, mate. The Roosters never missed their man.
No.
Well, it just speaks to the kind of troubles that the Knights are going through. We already know their roster's pretty decimated, and they're obviously struggling. So, I don't know who they go after. Like you say, it's not like there's exactly a lot of big-name middles out there. They might have to target the next tier down and see what they see what they can come up with. But
Potentially, yeah.
Hopefully their injury woes start coming right soon, and they can have a decent run.
Will come right in a couple of weeks after they face the Warriors again.
Yeah, but, hopefully.
Yeah, and I see Jacko said that I look older than Richie. Richie just looks after himself a lot better than I do.
That's the beard.
And the beard, I look 18 when I have a shave, but you will never know because I'm not shaving ever again. But yeah, next bit of news, quite interesting and surprising. Brad Arthur has had his contract extended as head coach for the Eels once again, despite sitting 0-3. He wasn't obviously a coach we had in our first coach to get fired, but I wouldn't think after this kind of start that they would extend the contract already. I think you would wait a little bit. But what's your take on it?
I'd say it's probably been in the works for a wee bit before the 0-3, and I mean, I'm not overly surprised, to be fair. He's since he's taken over the Eels, they've consistently made finals and went all the way to grand final last year. So it makes enough sense to me.
Yeah. And Nicholas said that my beard has its own postcode and it's totally majestic. You're the only one who thinks so. Next bit of news. Ronaldo Mulatalo has come out in the media this week saying that he believes there should be laws in place to deter social media abuse after revealing that he's received death threats and abuse directed towards his family. What's your take? I don't know what they can do in terms of the laws. I know we just had the kid that threw racial abuse at Latrell Mitchell, and he got a warning, and that's it. So even that, they're not doing anything. I'm not a fan of the social media abuse. I generally abuse them socially on the show. So I believe that you should only say stuff that you're willing to say to someone in person. And a lot of the stuff that gets hurled at rugby league players, you would never say anything about. Probably the only thing is critiquing Adam Fanua-Black's haircut. I would not say that to him in person, but I thought it a lot in the weekend. But yeah, it's making light of a serious situation here. But what do you reckon? Because he's not the only player. We hear it all the time. And I'm passionate about the Warriors, about rugby league, but not to the point where I'm threatening to kill people if they've had a bad game and things like that. I think it takes a different level of person to stoop that low, in my opinion. But what's your take on it?
It does. It really does. And social media has its upside when it comes to sport and the sport community and allowing professional athletes to connect with fans. But then obviously it has its dark side as well. I'm not sure exactly what you do about it, whether you can look these people up who are doing it and have some sort of punishment. But yeah, as well, I think these players, if they get something like that, just do what they can, block it, ignore it, report it. I'm not sure, but yeah, obviously it's got its dark sides.
Yeah, and like Jacko said, he said social media abuse is so widespread, I doubt much can be done about it. And that's the problem. Like you said, you can find it, track the person down, and then the next day there's a new profile they've created to do the same thing. Or is the profile they're using even a person? It's hard. It doesn't make it right. But hopefully they find some medium where they can kind of control it a bit better. Otherwise, you are going to see players just completely block themselves off from the fans, and it gives you a bit more of an insight about the player, about the club, and that's what people like us like. With the Warriors when they were stuck in Australia for all those years, seeing the stuff on socials kind of let you feel like you're still part of the group, if you get my drift. But hopefully they come up with something that kind of helps the players out a bit. But yeah, hopefully we hear some plans in the future, but we'll keep an eye on it and move on to some more happy news. Ed Kossi has extended his stay with the Warriors until the end of 2025. So he got a nice 2-year extension. What's your take on Kossi getting a further deal? I think, he's had his ups and downs, but I think the more he gets to play, the more confidence he seems to have in himself. So I think he is going to be a potential, first grade full-time winger for the Warriors if he keeps the trajectory he's going.
Yeah, I think he's really starting to find himself as an NRL player. We're seeing more good than bad this year for sure. And like seeing him score on the weekend, just the massive smile on his face that he's playing with, it's fantastic to see. I think, the more confidence and joy he plays with, I think if we're performing well as a team, he does his job as part of that system and he'll reap the benefits. So I know once Dallin gets back, he might be back to fighting for a spot, but it's great to have those kind of depth problems.
Yeah, I think you're going to see it'll be a similar situation that the Warriors have had this week with Chance and Tane, where once the guy that you've got number one in your depth chart comes back, he comes into the spot. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Next bit of news, we talked about him last week, but Taku Hau Tapua, the player the Roosters released so they could sign Nathan Brown's officially been announced as the Sharks' new signing. He's got a 2-year deal with the Sharks. I still don't know anything about him other than he was sacrificed so the Roosters could get another top-tier player. But hopefully this is a good move for him. The Sharks, are a team on the rise, depending on if they're stars or not. But I'm sure he'll do well for them. Did you do any research since our last show on Taku?
Do I look like the homework type?
No. That's why I laughed a bit.
No, yeah, I still don't know a lot about him either. So hopefully for the Sharks, he turns out to be a good one.
Yeah, and Jacko's comment, how long has DWZ got left on his contract as he's on big money and bringing Kossi in would free up salary cap? I'm not sure. I think it's another year or two, but I believe the way it was staggered was it was quite a lot. The Bulldogs were paying until their part had ended, and then after that, I'm not speculating, but I don't have it official. But I believe the Warriors only part is for a lesser rate.
Yeah,
because I think he was on like 800K when the Bulldogs were chipping in, and I think it was coming down to around the 550 mark. But I'm not in the club, so I don't know officially. But yeah, I can't tell you. Sorry, Jacko. And I see Nigel's here too.
Hey, I guess Nigel. The question is, Jacko, would you want to cut him?
I personally wouldn't at the moment. If he was still getting paid 800, there would be thoughts about it. But then I suppose in that regard, you're paying 800 there, but you're paying a lot less for the halves, which is a different story for other clubs. So I don't know. There's cap room once certain players are stopped being paid that are playing for other clubs. There's a bit of wiggle room. So
yeah,
we'll see. And speaking of salary cap, the Roosters, they've turned their eyes to the NRLW, Richie. And probably the most heartbreaking news for me this week. They're rumored to be closing in on the signing of Millie Boyle for the upcoming NRLW season. What do you think about my girl Millie potentially being a Rooster? I think it'd be great for her and the Roosters, but I just don't want to see her at the Roosters. And does that mean Adam Elliott's going to leave the Knights and become a Rooster now as well?
I think I think what it does mean is now the sombrero extends over the NRLW team as well.
Yeah. So she'd be a hell of an addition. She's one of the best forwards in the game. Taking my bias out of it. But yeah, it'd be great for them. Real kick to the guts of the Knights though after she went, and she was a huge reason that team turned around. Not the only reason, but a massive reason. And
it would make the Roosters a heck of a hard team to beat. They already have a pretty stacked roster with top tier rep players like Isabel Kelly, and they would take some beating if they got Millie over the line.
Do they still have Jessica Sturgis as well? Or is she moved on?
I believe so, doesn't she? don't they?
Yeah, it's hard to sell because they don't do multi-year deals in the NRLW yet. It's all like one-season deals, which is why you see players chopping and changing so much. So it's hard to sell. I haven't seen the news, but yeah, good luck, Millie, wherever you go. Hopefully she signs for the Warriors when the Warriors get a women's team again. It'd be great to have her in the country.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It's hard us being so apart, Richie. That Tasman, it doesn't do us very good. But last bit of news before we get into the massive injury toll, it was just a little happy note that I wanted to bring in. But the Dragons, they've reportedly told Anthony Griffin that he's going to need to reapply for his coaching role, and he's not guaranteed to be re-signed as head coach next season. Great news for me. I love seeing the Dragons, go down a peg. Bad news for us, though, is he was our predicted first coach to be fired. If they're telling him this now, it kind of makes me think that he's seeing out the season and probably will be fired at the end of it as opposed to getting fired mid-season. But what's your take? He's kind of been on borrowed time for a while, so I'm not surprised. But it's an interesting way of kind of pushing a coach out the door as opposed to just sacking him.
Yeah, it's not very NRL style, is it?
No.
Most NRL coaches fall on their sword if they're underperforming. So it is an interesting way to go about it. But yeah, who knows, mate? Who knows? We might be way off with our prediction there. It might be someone else.
We did get it wrong last year.
We did. Only just, though.
Only just. And well, Caden Rogers say the Roosters are dodgy. I know it, you know it. The whole house of cards will come tumbling down in the future, and a whole lot of competition points will be taken away. I hope so, but I think with Uncle Nick helping potentially expand the NRL, I think he's kind of got a little bit of a get-off-jail-free card with the NRL because he's helping potentially build it. So I don't know. And yeah, Ken said he feels sorry for Hook. Not a bad coach, but they've just got a shit squad. Yeah, I think he's a bit too old school now for how the NRL's going. But then in saying that, we've got a 100-year-old guy out there, bringing a brand new team to be one of the best teams currently. So I don't know. But yeah, the Dragons roster is not impressive, which I enjoy, but I'm sure their fans don't. Anything else you want to add to the news before we move on, Richie?
No, we can move on, mate. Let's get through those injuries.
Injuries, there's a lot. There was some that I even cut because there was just too many. But Danny Levi, he's on the sidelines for up to 10 weeks after fracturing his jaw in the early stages of his team, the Raiders' win over the Sharks. Heard that they even went back later on to find his teeth. I don't know if they found them or not, but huge injury for him there. A bit unfortunate, he's kind of been going all over the place trying to get another chance in the NRL, and then he kind of looked like he was finding his feet with the Raiders, and then this happens. So unfortunate, but hopefully the Raiders will still be in contention after 10 weeks, so he can have a bit of an impact. But what's your take on that? Fracturing your jaw just doesn't sound like a good time.
No, it doesn't sound fun at all, mate. So, might be eating some pretty soft food or liquid diet for a little bit, Danny, but wish you well in recovery, mate. Yeah,
and continuing with the Raiders, Nick Kotrick's facing up to 6 weeks after injuring his hamstring at training. Yet another hamstring this season. Another big loss for them. I think Kotrick's he's a good player, good solid player that has a little bit of X factor in him. So another big loss for the Raiders there, Richie.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel for him. I know all about those hamstring injuries, mate.
I never had that problem myself, but
no, you got to run fast enough, Brad?
Yeah, the key is if you're slow, your hamstrings are pretty safe. It's the knees that are the problem. But we'll go into some Warriors. So I've only put down two. Mitch Barnett, he has been cleared of a serious neck injury after that horrible incident that happened to him in the weekend. He was cleared, nothing serious, which is great, but he is missing this week's game. So Good to see them having enough confidence in the depth that they're not going to just push him out when his neck's not 100%. And Wade Egan is still mentally stuck in Townsville after being run over by Jason Domalolo. And he's going to miss next week's game due to the 11-day stand down that we talked about last week. So horrible to see what happened to him. It was his second HIA of the game, but he was all gone burgers. So I think it's the right decision. He's been in the wars the first 3 weeks too. So I think a week off is probably going to do him a lot better if we want him to be healthy for the whole season. So what's your take on the two Warriors players there, Rich?
I think you said it best when you said it's good we're going to trust our depth. Last year might have been a different story. I might have felt a lot more nervous, but obviously Mitch and Wade have both started the season on fire. But we're going to get Jackson Ford back this week, and I'm pretty sure Lussick can come in and do a decent enough job, and we've got some good bench cover now as well. So I'm liking our depth. So I'm hoping Mitch and Wade can take the week and freshen up and come back strong.
Definitely. Yeah. And then finishing off the injuries, we've got our Rabbitoh trio. So Hami Silly is also an 11-day standout after his fouled HIA, where it was like a minute into the game, I think.
Right at the start.
Yeah, and he was a Egan situation. Like, he was completely gone. So, unfortunate for him, but hopefully he comes back after this forced rest, fitter and stronger. And then Tavita Totola, he got an MCL injury. He's going to be out for 6 weeks. And Shaq Mitchell, the Trails brother, he injured his foot. And they ruled out him needing surgery, but they said he's still going to be out for several weeks. So that's a bit of a hit to the Rabbitohs forwards, Richie.
Yeah, it's going to test the depth of their middles, isn't it? So
yeah, and I'm a massive fan of Totola, so I think he had a real good year last year. So hopefully he comes back from the MCL 100%.
And Harmasele's got good reps on him too. He's meant to be a goer, but he just can't get a run of games without picking up some kind of injury. So, yeah, hopefully he comes right.
Yeah, so that was all the main injuries. There was a few other niggles in there, but I've left them out. So we'll go into Naughty Boys. I didn't even bother looking at the fines, but we had 3 suspensions. Joey Manu pled guilty and got a week for a grade 2 careless high tackle. Jerome Hughes and Felice Kafusi decided to go and fight their charges at the judiciary, and both failed. Kafusi I thought was a bit hard done by, which is my thing. But he has got 4 weeks for a grade 2 dangerous contact. Very similar to what we saw from Joseph Suoli'i on Chance, where he only got a fine. And Jerome Hughes got 2 weeks for a grade 2 dangerous contact, which isn't great for the Storm with all the kind of up and down form they got recently. Pappenhausen's still not back. Munster is named to play this week, which is a relief for them, I guess. But the Storm aren't catching a break with injuries right now and suspensions. And Kafusi is going to be a massive loss for the Dolphins. But then last week I said Jeremy Marshall-King was a massive loss too. But maybe the two of them combined could see the Dolphins finally face defeat.
We did say that the big test for the Dolphins would be how their depth holds out when they start losing some players, so yeah, I thought that was a bit harsh too, but I know Kafusi has some priors, before this incident, so probably weighed into his punishment. But yeah, I didn't see it to be any worse than what Suoli'i did. Suoli'i's one was probably worse, and he walked away with a fine. So
yeah,
just more NRO and consistency.
Yeah, and Caden asked where King Paul is. He is not here tonight. He's too good for us. He decided he was taking a personal day. So it's just us, which is why we're a mess. But it is what it is. And Jacko asked how can Suoli'i not even get 10 in the bin and Kafusi gets week suspension. I don't even think the Warriors got a penalty for it, did they?
Nah. I can answer that though, Jacko. It comes down to the team he plays for, and he's an NRL Golden Boy.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And Jagger said Dolphins have depth problems for sure. Yeah, and that's something you said, Richie, last week, that the Dolphins are going great right now, but if they get a few injuries or a suspension and their depth's tested, that's when we're going to see if they can cut it or not, you know. Very tough this week. But we may as well, that's all I really had. So we may as well jump into our quick review, which wasn't that much quicker last week with our new format. But I'll let you start by telling us the rundown of the Sea-Eagles-Eels game.
Yeah, you bet, mate. So Thursday night, very entertaining game. Brad's other team, the Sea Eagles, 34, the Eels 30. This might take a while because it was 6 tries apiece. Ruben Garrick, Tom Trebojevic times 2, Brad Parker and Olakau'atu times 2. For the Eels, Clint Gutherson times 2, Matt Dory, Mike Acevo times 2, and Josh Hodgson. So, yes, it was quite an entertaining game, Brad. What did you make of it, man?
Yeah, so for me, I thought Manly just keep going from strength to strength. I thought their attack looked nice and crisp. And with Tommy Turbo out the back, they're always going to be a threat. But what's your take on Manly?
I thought Schuster's return added quite a lot to a side that was already hit the ground running, you know, and they're looking a complete different side to the side that couldn't buy a win post Pride Jersey Gate last year. So it's looking good. It's looking good on the Northern Beaches.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Eels?
Yeah, tough for them, isn't it? Like, they've looked good in patches, but just defensively not where they need to be. And their draw coming up still quite tough. So, you know, it's tough days at the moment for the Eels.
Yeah, I've got that. I thought they lost another match they could have won. They could have been, technically, if they had sorted a few things out and iced it, they could have been 3-0 right now. They do know how to score points. As you said, there's times when they look really good, but it's the defensive side that's an issue. If they don't sort that part out, they're going to keep falling. As you said, they've got a tough run. They've got to play the Panthers this week. You know, so they most likely will be going 0-4. I can't remember who they got next week, but I think it's very likely that they could be 0-5.
Was it the Roosters? It was someone difficult. I know it was every chance of going 0-5.
Yeah, and my player that stood out was Tommy Turbo. Jacko said he still looks like he's favouring his hammies. I think that's true, but he looked really good. Just the dangerous Tommy that I know and love. I guess I won't say that we know and love, but yeah, I thought he had a great outing. And Matata has said they're facing the Roosters, so they got Panthers Roosters back to back.
We have a Roosters fan. I apologise for our sombrero talk, mate. It's only tongue in cheek. The Roosters.
And yeah, Jacko said the Eels are missing Reid Marnie. I think they're missing Reid and Papali'i. And, you know, they've also got Sean Lane out at the moment.
Sean Lane and Madison. There's a few.
Tough times. And they've got a half that only likes playing easy teams. So, you know, it's hard days for the Eels. Next game, Richie, the Dolphins and the Knights.
Yep. The Dolphins 20, the Dolphins 36 over the Knights 20, I should say. 7 tries to 3 for the Dolphins. Tessie New grabbed a hat trick. Jermaine Asako grabbed a double. Cody Nakarima had a try, and the hammer, Tabuai Fido, had one as well. 3 tries for the Knights, Tyson Gamble, and 2 for Lockie Miller, who's looking quite good. Yeah. Yours, Brad?
Yeah, so I thought it was a tougher night for the Dolphins. But they've now shown us that they can grind out a win. We've kind of seen them have it a little bit easy. And yeah, they're a very capable side. We just got to see how they go with their depth tested, especially this week, when I think this is going to be their toughest challenge. But yeah, your thoughts on the Dolphins?
Yeah, I thought they've done well to take advantage of the Knights team who, you know, as we know, down on troops. They don't really have any out-and-out superstars, but they all look like they're playing their role and turning up for one another, which is, all you can ask for, and it's the kind of thing that Wayne Bennett instills in teams. So it's doing well to jag them some games right now.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Knights?
Yeah, I just think they're missing too much cattle, mate. Like I was saying, Lockie Miller's looking promising, but they're missing a lot of cattle, and it showed this week. Lack of cohesion, a lot of errors. That's the other side of the coin. That's costing them games.
Yeah, I've got the same. I thought they started well, but they had 16 errors, and all those players out at the moment. They're just fighting an uphill battle. It's going to be tough for them until they get some of those guys back. My player that I thought stood out was Tessie New. Thought he looked really good. He's kind of been consistent for the first 3 rounds, but you've had like the Hammer and guys like that are kind of taking the shine off him. But I thought it was a nice, solid game for him. Your player?
Yeah, I wanted to show some love to former Warrior Ewan Aitken. I thought he stood out quite a bit. 112 run meters, 5 tackle breaks, 2 try assists. So, us Warriors fans know what Ewan's capable of, and it's nice to see him showing it there at the Dolphins.
Yeah, definitely. The last game on Friday, we had the Roosters beating the Rabbitohs 20-18. You got the score rundown there?
I do, yeah. So as you just said, Roosters 20, Rabbitohs 18. 4 tries to 3. Brandon Smith, Daniel Tupou, Jackson Polo times 2. 3 tries to the Rabbitohs, Keon Kalormatangi, Alex Johnston, and Isaac Thompson. Your thoughts on the grudge match, Brad?
Yeah, hard fought and well-deserved win by the Roosters here. The return of some of their forwards, getting Hargraves and that back, it made their backs night a lot easier. And yeah, just kind of more the Rabbitohs team that I was expecting to see this year. Your thoughts on them?
So I still don't think the Roosters look to be at their very best, but still ended up winning the rivalry match. So I think having Wadia Hargraves and Brandon Smith off the bench really helped turn the momentum. So that was good stuff from Trent Robinson to know when to inject them when Souths look like they're on top early on.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the Rabbits?
Again, they're still yet to click and sort of dogged by errors. There were some shining lights, individuals. Kalormatangi, Campbell Graham, I thought really good. So it's not all doom and gloom. I expect them to click sooner rather than later. I mean, they're too good a side not to come right at some point.
Yeah, I feel like I say it every week on the show, but they let themselves down with handling errors. I think they were only beaten by the Knights in terms of errors. They had 15. And if they don't fix that, you can expect them dropping these marquee games. When they're holding the ball properly, they can beat anybody. So they just got to fix that. It's basically all they need to fix, and I think they'll be on the right track. And my player that stood out was Jackson Polo. Thought he had an outstanding game against the club that didn't want him anymore. Kicked them out, and he just looks. He was playing an extra pip in his step, playing against his former club. But just was a great performance. Hopefully that stays for him. If he can keep consistent, I think he's going to find himself doing well at the Roosters. At least until Dominic Young shows up, maybe. Yeah.
My player that stood out, Brad had to go at me last week for picking too many halves, so I'm gonna pick a front row here. I thought off the bench, Wadia Hargraves, 38 minutes, 145 run meters, 17 runs. So once he come on, really busy, aggressive, and him along with Brandon Smith really helped turn the tide when they were struggling. So I thought big shift from the old dog.
Yeah, definitely. And the first game on Saturday, and the first, I would say, upset of the round, the Titans defeating the Storm 38-34. You want to give us the rundown here?
Yeah, this should be fun. Titans 38, Storm 34 from the Gold Coast. 6 tries apiece. Cam Pereira with a double. Aaron Shute with a double, Brian Kelly and Joe Vuna with the try scorers for the Titans. Jonah Pizzette on debut for the Storm got one. Nick Meaney got two. Tarek Sims in his Storm debut. Jerome Hughes and Xavier Coates with the try scorers. Entertaining game, Brad. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought the Titans did look good. Strong efforts all over the park for them. We've said it a lot. They know how to score points very easily. But just like last year, they need to be able to work on that defense. As conceding 34 points is not a situation you want to be in every week. You get 34 points against you, odds are you're not going to win the game. They were lucky here with that. But I think you're seeing a few of their players that need to step up actually doing that with the ball in hand. So good for them. But your take on the Titans?
Yeah, I have a very similar take to you. Points aren't normally the issue for the Titans, and very well done to them for getting the win over the Storm. But yeah, they do need to shore up their defense if they want to entertain any thoughts of fighting for an 8. So, I mean, 30 normally conceding 34, you lose. So they've won the shootout there, but they need to tidy up their D.
Yeah, and your take on the Storm?
Yeah, I mean, despite leading at halftime, they came out and conceded back-to-back tries immediately after halftime through costly errors. And that made it really hard for them. And you can see. I think a lot of people are saying they're looking very un-Melbourne-like, and I think that's pretty spot on. You know, they're looking probably about as vulnerable as they have in a number of years.
Yeah, you're stealing my notes, mate. I've got it there. They look very un-Storm-like. Too many errors, defensive misreads. The loss of all those experienced players may have had a bigger impact than we thought it would. You take Munster out as well. Basically, all their experienced forwards are gone. That's 2 in a row, which we don't say a lot about the Storm. So, yeah, I'm sure Bellamy's got something that's going to kick them back into gear. You never write them off, but it's not looking great there at the moment. My player that stood out was Big Tino. Thought he was just a monster like he always is, but he's getting help now. But just because he's getting help doesn't mean that he brings himself down. He still plays at that a bit like a Tohu. He could have everyone working with him. He's not going to, come down a level and take it easy. He's always going to push. So, fantastic day for Big Tino. And your player?
Yeah, I picked out young Khan Pereira. I think there's just something about him. He obviously looks lightning fast with good agility. I think we'll probably see this kid pick up quite a few tries, in the future. So yeah, he looks sharp.
Yeah, and Simon's mentioned the Dolphins could affect the Melbourne Storm's player development pathways, which is true. It's going to be interesting to see what Melbourne do there. They, I'm not sure. They're always good at turning young players into stars, but yeah, if they find other teams are going to start taking those young players, who knows what's going to happen? Especially when Bellamy hangs up the whistle.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting for them. But next game, probably the game we were looking forward to talking about, Richie. Warriors 26, Cowboys 12. You got the score rundown there for me?
I do, and that sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Warriors 26, Cowboys 12 in Townsville. It was 5 tries to 2. Wade Egan, Marcelo Montoya with a double. Jazz Tavanga, the comeback kid, grabbing 1, and Ed Cossey grabbing 1. Just 2 tries for the Cowboys, both within the first 13 minutes. Tom Chester and Reece Robson. So, go on, Brad. I know you want to talk about this. This was a good one.
Yeah, I said in my review that I did this week, it was the best performance from a Warriors team that I've seen in years, probably going back to 2018, when they had that 5-0 start and made it to the finals admittedly for 1 week. But, I think they had 11 players run for over 100 meters. Defensively, I think they were more impressive. The Cowboys did try to throw a few things at them. It's still early days, but I know it kind of leaks into your question for me later, but they could be the real deal. What's your take on the Warriors?
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, mate. It's my mind struggles to think of a better performance in recent history. So I can't really fault anybody. I felt like it was a fantastic team performance, and everyone played their part in the heat in Townsville to snap a 13-game losing streak in Australia. So
Yeah,
man, I could probably talk all day. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Cowboys?
It's similar to the first couple of weeks. Strong start, very strong start. 2 tries in first 13 minutes, like I said. And despite a strong showing in the second first-grade game for Tom Chester at fullback, it looks like the Cowboys are really lacking in attack without Drinkwater. Yeah, after that first 30 minutes, it was all downhill from there. They didn't really look likely at all after that.
Yeah, I've got here the quick start from the Cowboys was good, but they just ran out of juice. I said it before we went live, Richie, that in those conditions that they should be used to, they looked more fatigued than the Warriors did. Especially when you think a lot of that time the Warriors were spending defending, which usually drains you more. So, second half fades are becoming the norm for the Cowboys right now, and they need to change that quick if they want to repeat last year's heroics and not have it as a one-off outlier. Before I mentioned my player that stood out, we did have some comments. So Jacko said Peyton's face in the aftermatch prezzo was gold.
It was.
Yeah, he wasn't happy, but to his credit, before the game even started, he basically said, a lot of people are writing this team off. You can't take the Warriors lightly. So he was already worried about the Warriors. So at least, there's one guy in Australia that thinks the Warriors might be a tough team. And then Ken said the defense is what's standing out for him this year for the Warriors. So they're finally putting in for one another. And I'm the same. I think there's still some issues on attack, especially the closer they get to a try line. But that defense was the one thing I bitched and moaned about all last year on this show in my writing when I wrote every week. And it's the one thing I wanted them to fix. And so far they have, they still lost to the Roosters, but they didn't, last year it would have been a 40-point loss, not a close loss. So, I think the players are buying into what Andrew Webster's selling. So, I don't know how confident I'm getting, but I feel it's there, Richie. I feel like we're close. But my player that stood out was Jazz. I love Jazz, but I thought it would take him a game or two to kind of get back into the swing of things of reserve grade. But he just hit the ground running. Thankfully, he's got head tape, so I can tell him and Dylan Walker apart. But yeah, he was just out there doing everything you expect. Great to see him get a try. I think it's $500 towards his mate.
Yeah, $500.
So an expensive day for him, but at least it's put out there straight away that he's not going to be trying to lower his stats to save him some coin. So great performance from him, and hopefully it's the start of a strong year for him. But your player?
Honestly, I would have been tempted to say Jazz as well, but I knew you were going to pick him. So I also thought Montoya was really good, so I'll show him some love. 2 tries, ton of run meters, aggressive. I just think he starts our sets off really, really well on the front foot, and that's been a hallmark of wingers we've had in the past with Manu and guys like that, Ken Maumalo. So
definitely.
But Montoya's starting to do this every week now, so I think it's probably about time I single him out. I think he's made a great start to the year.
Yeah, Nigel, before we move on, Nigel said his play of the day was Tohu's shove on Pompey on the goal line to hurry up and D up. Yeah, so it's good to see guys like Tohu, those experienced guys, doing that rather than just, last year I feel like if a player wasn't D'ing up, they kind of didn't say anything, and that's where someone would score. So they're all speaking to each other, which is an integral part of defense. If you're not talking, mistakes happen. So hopefully it's a sign of good things, Richie. Well, we'll move on to probably my favorite game of the round after the Warriors. Broncos wiping the floor with the Dragons 40-18. If you want to run down your little score there.
I will. The wiping them didn't really start till the last 10 minutes, Brad.
Still a wiping.
Broncos 40, Dragons 18. 7 tries to 3 for the Broncos. Katoni Staggs got 2. Corey Pates, Selwyn Cobbo, Reece Walsh, the Golden Boy, got 2. And Ezra Mam got 1. For the Dragons, 3 tries, Matthew Fengai, Tyrell Sloan, and Jaden Sullivan. Go on, Brad. I know you're itching to talk about a Dragons loss.
Yeah, so first up, the Broncos. It looked like the Broncos were getting the speed wobbles here. It was 16-8 at halftime to the Dragons. It was like, oh no, the Dragons are going to ruin my weekend by getting a win here. But the longer the game went on, the more class the Broncos showed. All their stars were on song. We talked prior to jumping on about Reece Walsh making a few warrior-like errors that we were used to seeing from him last year. But then he switched and was back to the superstar that we saw the week before for the Broncos. When everyone's clicking, it's just a dangerous outfit. And I just said different backdrop, Brad. Where's the calendar? Since last time you watched, I've moved house. And you can't see my calendar because I haven't put it up yet, but I've got it here. I can't really put it anywhere that you can see it because the wall's too far away now. But your take on the Broncos, Richie?
Yeah, I thought it was a slow start from them. I thought they looked in danger for a large part of that game, but all of a sudden they exploded and only really took them 10, 15 minutes to show what they're capable of and take the game away from the Saints. So, once they clicked, they looked pretty deadly.
Yeah, your thoughts on the Dragons?
Yeah, I thought for the most part of the game they looked the better team, but once the Broncos clicked, they just didn't have the ability to stem the tide. It was pretty poor showing from the Dragons in the last 10, 15.
Yeah, I've got kind of the same thing. They were in the fight here, but they switched off in the final 10 minutes. And if you want to be competitive in the NRL, you got to play for the 80. We know that a lot better than most as fans of the Warriors who have this kind of ability in them in the past. It's a game the Dragons could have won. But you just can't let a team like the Broncos get the upper hand on you because they'll do this. They'll blow you off the park. My player that stood out was Payne Haas. I gave you a lot of stick about picking a lot of halves last week, but then I noticed I didn't pick a lot of props. So I had to kind of change that. But Haas, a bit like the Big Tino thing, he was a monster out there and, they brought him back on the park in that final 10. And I think that kind of helped. He was out there, breaking through that line. He set up a few tries. Fantastic player. And I still remember going back and earlier in our show, a couple of seasons back, about how silly the Broncos were for letting Fafita go and deciding to keep Payne Haas. And I've never been prouder to be wrong. So, fantastic. But who was your player that stood out?
Honestly, I would have said Haas too because his performance was just so eye-catching. Over 200 run meters, offloads, setting up tries. But I've gone another prop too because I just think all their forwards are really good. I mean, Carrigan, Ricky, I think most of their forward pack really stood up. But I've gone Flegler because he's going to be a big pickup for the Dolphins next year. He's 48 minutes, 172 run meters. So I think their rotation's pretty spot on right now, and there's no real let up with their pack, and it's just laying the foundation for those flash pretty boys out the back. Yeah.
And then the first game on Sunday, Richie, we had the Bulldogs squeaking out a win against the Tigers 26-22.
Yep.
What's our rundown?
So as you said, 26-22, Bulldogs, the winners there, 4 tries apiece with just goal kicking being the difference. Hayes Perham, Josh Adokar got a double, and Matt Burden. For the Tigers, Brent Naden, Luke Brooks, Fanua Pole, and Charlie Staines So, and it was just the 4 conversions to Flanagan and 3 out of 4 for Dewey. But yeah, it didn't look like it was going to be that way. The Dogs were controlling most of that game. So how did you see it?
Yeah, the Bulldogs dodged a bullet, in my opinion. They were clunky, I think. They controlled that first half really well. I think it felt like they kind of thought it was in the bag at halftime and came out a little bit different and weren't firing, but they did enough to win. Disappointing start to their season, I think, for the expectations that everyone had for the Bulldogs. But at least they're getting runs on the board, which is, if you look at the Eels, similar situation. But instead of, just nudging out a win, they're getting a loss and they're sitting at the bottom of the ladder. Your take on the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I thought they looked the far superior team for the majority of that. Obviously, with that left side was doing a lot of damage and Burton looking good. I'm not sure if it was just them clocking off, but, it hit a point then where the Bulldogs rather, conceded the last 3 tries and it made it a real nervous finish for them.
Yeah. And your take on the Tigers?
Yeah, for much of that game, it looked like same old Tigers. 3 late tries, as I just said before, probably kind of glossed over much of the bad they did in that game and brought them into the game. But, they were unable to find that killer blow when it counted.
Yeah, I kind of got the same. New coach, new players, same old Tigers. They could have finally got their first win for the year, but they let themselves down with discipline and errors, like we always see. Guys like Papali'i, Papali'i's not the same player he was at the Eels with the Tigers right now. He's looking like the player that was playing in a Warriors jersey. So I don't know what's happened there. But, yeah, I feel for the Tigers. I don't know what's going on, but I got sucked into the hype with all those players, and they're making me look like an idiot. So
you and me both.
Not happy. My player that stood out is the current Dally M leader, Jacob Carras. Thought, he's got a very talented winger that kind of steals all the limelight from him. But I think he's been playing really well. And, he's not, I don't expect him to be in contention for the Dally M at the back end of the year, but it's great to see him getting these points on the board early on. And, he's going to be a talented player. He's still very young, but yeah, very happy to see him playing well. Hopefully he doesn't this week though.
Yeah, hopefully not. My player that stood out, I've gone with Paul Alamotti, young 19-year-old rookie centre. I just think on that left-hand side with the Fox, they were just doing so much damage, and Paul worked some really nice plays and had some try involvements there on Adokar's try. So, yeah, I think he was really eye-catching out there. I think he's got a big future.
Yeah, and Jacko said Tigers are trying for back-to-back spoons. I think that's a massive possibility right now. And Simon also said he thinks Tim Sheens is very out of his depth and hasn't coached for a long time. Yeah, I feel like they're all just waiting until Benji takes over. I think is it next year? I think Sheens is only doing this year, right? I think we did talk about it. Mm-hmm. But then, Benji's never done it before, so it's not like it's a magical approach in that scenario either. So I don't know. It's tough to be a Tigers fan at the best of times, but it feels really bad right now. Yeah. Last game, the one Simon's probably waiting for us to talk about. Raiders defeating the Sharks 24-20. You got the tries there for me, mate?
I do, yeah. Simon's Raiders getting the bickies here. Again, it was 4 tries apiece for the Raiders. Albert Hopewadi, Corey Horsburgh, Matt Tamuko, and Corey Horsburgh grabbed the second one, actually. And for the Sharks, Will Kennedy, Ronaldo Mulatalo, Jesse Ramian, and Brighton Nakora. What was your take on that one, Brad?
Yeah, so before I talk about the Raiders, Jacko said he thinks Sheen's doing 2 years. So I'll look into it so we can know for sure next week. But yeah, it was 1 or 2. But yeah, the Raiders managed to hold on and avoid another Raiders fade. And while it wasn't pretty, it was a gritty win and a platform they can build on. I've kind of been talking their praises the last couple of weeks, saying like you can see there is something there. They just got to fix a few things. But I think we saw that here. It was a very tough win. But your take on the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, after a tough start to the year, I think they proved on the weekend they'll still be a difficult team to face, particularly at home, where they're always hard to face. And they did enough to hold off the Sharks at the end there to not notch a much needed win to kickstart their season. So it's a good win for the Raiders.
And your take on the Sharks?
So as much as I rapped Braden Trindle last week, and he always does a really good job when required, it's just so hard to replace a reigning Dally M player like Nico Hines and what he brings to the team, his importance to the Sharks winning games. You can't underestimate it.
Yeah, I've kind of got a similar type of thing. I said the Sharks are still missing Nico Hines, but to get this close to winning in Canberra without him shows that they are still a top 8 contender. Once Hines is back, which is this week, the Sharks will start climbing the ladder. And my player was the Big Red Machine, Corey Horsburgh. How often do you say can come out of a game and say Corey Horsburgh scored a double? On that alone, he needs to be praised. But it was a great performance from him. He's had his fair share of critics for his passion. But yeah, thought it was a great game from him. Who did you want to pick out?
So my one was Matt Tomoko. I think he had a really big game. I think he's been having a lot of really big games the past couple of years. I was kind of hopeful he might get a look in for Kiwi selection last year. Didn't happen, but I think eventually it'll come. I think he's just so strong and powerful, and he really looks really good out on the edge there with the Raiders.
Hopefully he's still playing by the time they decide to let the Kiwis play again.
Yeah.
Probably in like another 2 or 3 years. We'll see. So, that was the round. Unfortunately, we have to talk about our picks. So I'll bring it up. Simon got 6 out of 8. I didn't mention it earlier for the Titans Storm game. Simon correctly picked the Titans to get the win over the Storm. So massive credit there. The only games he got wrong was the Rabbitohs losing and the Cowboys losing. So pretty good for him. I got 4 out of 8. And you beat me this week, Richie, with 5 out of 8. So Simon is blowing us off the park with the tips this year. I'm feeling very uncomfortable. He's 15 out of 24. I'm second at 11 out of 24, and now you've caught up to me 10 out of 24.
I'm coming, Brad.
Hopefully I have a good week this week. Otherwise, I could be sitting at the bottom of the ladder. So not great there. And Christopher Edwards-Bailey's asked, when will the Kiwis play again? Any Anzac Test this year? I don't know if there's even going to be a Kiwis game this year. I haven't heard. I know they were wanting more games, but we haven't heard anything. So I'm really not sure. Before we go on, we'll look at the ladder, Richie. Not a ladder I think either of us would have predicted this year. But we've got number 1. We've got the Broncos. Number 2, we've got the Dolphins. 3, we've got Manly. 4, we've got the Warriors. 5, we've got Penrith. 6, we've got the Titans. 7th, the Roosters. And 8th, the Bulldogs. With the bottom teams, Dragons at 9th. Rabbitohs 10th, Raiders 11th, Sharks 12th, Storm 13th, Knights 14th, Cowboys 15th, Eels 16th, and Tigers 17th, with those 2 teams yet to record a win. What's your take on this ladder?
I just can't stop looking at it. It's the Warriors are in the top 4. It just looks gorgeous. I want to take a picture and hope it lasts forever.
Yeah, and Simon said doesn't think there's any internationals in the Southern Hemisphere, only in Northern Hemisphere this year. So I think they're not.
That's poor, isn't it?
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to write down the Simon's picks. So we'll go into questions, Richie. So I'll ask my question of you as I write down Simon's picks. So my question for you is, who gets their first win, the Eels or the Tigers? I know we just talked about the Eels have a couple of rough games coming up.
Yes. on the 10th of April, these two teams meet. They play each other. I don't see either team winning a game before then. I think both teams have before April 10th have games that I'm pretty sure they'll lose. So I think it'll come down to this match, and I think the Eels will beat the Tigers. So yeah, I think the Eels will win first.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I think I don't know if they won't get a win until that week, but I think Eels, you would have to pick the Eels out of those two options. It's just seems silly. We've got Simon saying the Dolphins-Broncos game should be a sellout with the top two teams in a local derby. Yeah, I think they've been talking about how it's basically, if it's not sold out already, it's going to be. And yeah, Christopher said it does look like Tonga and maybe Samoa may tour England and France. Would love to see a Four Nations with Samoa, New Zealand, Tonga, and England. Yeah, we always champion it a bit for more internationals. And yeah, Simon said England's playing in the European Championship as well, but that might be a B team. So yeah, I'm sure once we get some news, Christopher, on internationals, we always throw it into the show anyway. So hopefully we do get some confirmations on what's going to happen post NRL season. But your question for me?
Yep. So Warriors related. There's rising optimism about the Warriors after the first 3 rounds. How have your views changed regarding a top 8 finish since your start of the year predictions? What percentage chance do you give us as of right now?
Yeah, well, before the season started, I said I see the Warriors being 10th. I think they're a top 8 side. I think they can be now. I wasn't sold on the defense side of things before a first ball was kicked. That was my biggest issue with the team. That seems to have been fixed for the time being. If we see the same type of thing when they're playing a Broncos, Penrith, those types of teams, it's going to be another story. So it's gone up. Percentage of them being like finals, I'll go up to like a 50-50 right now.
Nice.
Which I still want to see a few more big bopper games from them. If they, Anzac game is always the one. When the Warriors have been playing really well or they've been playing really bad, it doesn't matter. They get, 50, 60 points put on them by the Storm every year. So I want to see them go to Melbourne on Anzac night and either come away with a win or come away with a respectable loss. They do that, then I'm all in. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm very much the same. I wasn't giving us a huge chance before a ball's kicked off this year. Obviously, having seen a bit more, I'm starting to get a little bit more excited. I just hope as the season progresses, we don't drop any games that we really should be winning. These like this weekend, for example, playing against the Bulldogs in Mount Smart Stadium. By all accounts, ticket sales are going well. Should be a big crowd. We should win that game. If we start dropping games like that, then it might hurt our chances down the line. But I'd also give it about a 50-50.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we may as well get into round 4. As we've been doing, we'll talk about the Warriors game first. So I'll bring up our nice little picture, and you want to run down the Warriors team, and then I'll talk about the Bulldogs team after you.
Yep, you bet. So at fullback, Chance Nicole Klostad is back. On the wings, Ed Cossey and Marcelo Montoya keep their place. Viliami Valea and Adam Pompey keep their place from last week as well in the centres. The halves stay the same, Timari Martin and Sean Johnson. The front row, Adam Fanua-Blake, Bunty Afoa, and Freddie Lussick comes in for Wade Egan with his concussion. The second row on the edges, Jackson Ford is back, and Marata Niokore. Tohu Harris, captain, and number 13. Interchange, Dylan Walker, Bailey Seranen, Jazz Tivanga, and Tom Ale.
Yeah. And then for the Bulldogs, got former Warrior Haynes Perham at fullback. We've got Jacob Carraz and Josh Adokar on the wings. Jake Averillo and Paul Alamotti in the centres. Captain Matt Burden's at 5'8". Kyle Flanagan's halfback. Front row is Max King, Reid Marnie, and Ryan Sutton. Second row is Viliami Kakao and Jacob Preston. And then the locks, Raymond Falatar Mariner. Then the interchange, we've got Jaden Okunbor, Corey Waddell, Jaden Tanner, and Fa'amomu Brown. We've got here Jacob said, Jacob. Sorry, I saw Jacob Kraz on the screen there. Sorry, Jacko. Jacko said if we win 4 of the first 10, big chance of making the 8. On Ruin Hammer's show, when we did our season preview, I said the first 10 rounds, I see 2 wins. The 2 games against the Knights.
We're already there.
So we're already there. So I think 4 out of the first 10 is very achievable for them. But that's looking into the rest of the rounds. Warriors, Bulldogs, Richie. What do you reckon?
I think we could go well here back at Mount Smart. Homecoming, a real homecoming to Mount Smart, the spiritual home of the boys. Traditional Sunday 4 o'clock time slot, Brad. We used to love those.
Yep.
Yeah, I just really hope we turn Mount Smart into a fortress this year and defend it really well. The Bulldog side, no denying, looks a lot better this year. They got some weapons there, but I think this game we should really put away. I'm going to tip us to do so. Yeah,
I've picked the Warriors as well. I think, as you said, a massive crowd for the first game at Mount Smart. Warriors are showing what they can do. I think they'll go an extra level being at home. That first game at Mount Smart always, the Bulldogs had a great team against them last year at Mount Smart, and look what happened. Jacko's kind of said here, if we're the real deal, we beat the Dogs. Yeah, if the Warriors want to be a finals team, this is a game they have to ice. First game at home. I know Wellington counts as a home game, but this is really the first home game. It's a triple header. Forgot to mention that in the news. You've got SG Ball, New South Wales Cup, and first grade all playing back-to-back. So it should be a great time if you're in Auckland, get to the game. I've kind of cemented in that I'm going to watch all 3 because we don't get to watch a lot of SG. You don't see any SG Ball on TV. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to see the young players. We keep talking about this new development. I want to actually go see them play. So hopefully have a bit of insight for us next week on the show. I think they have to get this game. So, Warriors for me. Which brings us to the rest of the round, Richie, if I can bring up our little fixtures.
Yep.
Tomorrow night, Eels, Panthers. Simon and myself have both gone with the Panthers here. What say you? I assume it's Panthers. You already said that the Eels aren't going to win until they face the Tigers.
Yeah, that was a bit of a spoiler. Yeah, I'm going Panthers.
Yeah. First game on Friday, we've got Storm Tigers. I don't see the Storm losing 3 in a row, and the Tigers don't look like they can win anything right now. So I've gone for the Storm. So is Simon.
Yeah, I'm going Storm, although they don't look great. So I don't think they'll blow them away. I know they do. They're struggling for combinations, though. I don't know that they'll blow the Tigers away, but I'm still picking Storm. Yeah.
Then next up on Friday, probably the game of the round, Broncos, Dolphins. The two of the undefeated teams. I think Manly is still technically undefeated, but they've had less games to play. So the 2 3-0 teams playing here, one of them will face defeat. I've gone with the Broncos, and Simon's gone with the Dolphins. I just think.
Ooh.
I think Kafusi and Jeremy Marshall King out against the Broncos team that is singing right now. I think it's theirs to lose. So I think the Broncos are going to have the edge here. But I think it's going to be a fantastic contest.
I hope it is. Would love to see the Dolphins win. They're not a surprise anymore. We've got 3 weeks where we've seen what they can do. So ambush factor's gone. So I think the Broncos might just have a bit too much class. Yeah, no,
Jacko, Caden's corrected me here saying I'm wrong. The Tigers definitely look like winning the spoon. So, yeah, they do look like winning something. So who did you pick against? Broncos.
I did, Broncos.
Yeah. All right, first game on Saturday, we've got Cowboys-Titans. Simon and myself have both gone with Cowboys. I think the Titans still don't know how to defend. Cowboys have got something to prove after being embarrassed at home. So, yeah, I think Cowboys have to get the win here.
Yeah, I think it'll be tight, but I've leant towards the Cowboys as well.
All right, so you're picking the same as me, which is meaning I might hold on to a lead this week. Next up, we've got Rabbitohs Sea Eagles. Simon's gone with the Rabbits, and I've gone with the Sea Eagles. Still my cliche, if Tommy's playing, I pick the Sea Eagles.
Yeah, I was very tempted to go down that road too. They're looking really good. But I'm going Manly. I think Rabbitohs are missing too many middles. It might hurt them.
Yeah, and Simon said Dolphins Broncos was the hardest match to pick this round, and Jacko says if Cows lose, they're in trouble for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
I think they'll be really worried. Next up was Warriors Bulldogs. We both picked Warriors. Simon has as well, so we don't need to talk about that one.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Knights versus Raiders. Simon and myself have both picked the Raiders. The Knights are in trouble depth-wise, so I think the Raiders will get the job done here.
Yeah, I went Raiders also.
So we're picking exactly the same, Richie.
Yeah.
Last game of the round, Dragons Sharks. Simon and myself have both picked Sharks. You gonna break my heart and pick the Dragons, or?
Nico's named to play this week, isn't he?
He is, yes.
Yeah, no, I can't bring myself to tip Dragons. Put me down for Sharks.
All right, so you're staying last this week.
Yeah.
Regardless of how good or bad our picks are. The only thing is we're going to try to catch up to Simon.
Yeah.
Simon has picked the Dolphins and the Rabbits, different to us. So we need the Broncos and Sea Eagles to do us a solid this week, so we can try to catch up.
You gonna do a multi to back up your tips this week?
No. The first round when I was that confident with my tips, all my TAV money's gone, mate. They took it all.
Fair enough.
So that is our round 4. So this is where we lose Jacko when we decide to talk about Super League for a little bit before we go home.
It's great having you again, Jacko.
Great having you here, Jacko. Hopefully it's a great weekend of footy for you, and see you next week. So Super League time. Warrington and Catalans are currently atop the ladder with 5-0 records. Wigan and Salford are 3rd and 4th with 3-2 records, and Wakefield is the only team yet to win a match. So I'll run down the round 5 results. We had Castleford defeating Leeds 14-8. Wigan just beating Uddersfield 14-12. St Helens winning over Hull FC 20-12. Warrington defeating Lee 38-20. Catalans defeating Hull KR 26-12. And then Salford defeating Wakefield 14-13. So Wakefield may not have won a game yet, but they just lost by 1 point against the 3rd best team. Round 6, there's a couple of bangers in there. We've got Uddersfield versus St Helens, Wakefield versus Hull KR, Wigan versus Salford, Castleford versus Warrington, Leeds versus Catalans, and Hull FC versus Lee.
Go the Warriors, Jacko.
Yeah, and Jack says go the Warriors where he left. Then we got Catalan Dragons have actually sorted a TV deal for them to broadcast games in Spain, selective games. So Simon's let us know that.
Nice.
Great for the Catalans there. They got us. They're kind of the key force of spreading the game out there. A good Catalans team means they can push it out. Hopefully they get some viewers from Spain. Be great to see. And Simon says Wakefield's kind of in trouble with their pitch and the quality of their pitch right out of the vaccine off the chance to have a game televised. Yeah, so it's not great for Wakefield at the moment, but when a pitch is ever great up in the Northern Hemisphere. Anything else you want to add before we go, Richie?
Just a big thanks to everyone for chatting tonight. It was great to chat after a fantastic Warriors win. So let's hope for more this weekend, everybody.
Yeah, and if you go into the game in Mount Smart and you see me, come say hi. I'm currently going on my own. I'm still trying to find someone to come with me. No one's interested, Richie. It's crazy.
I heard if someone goes and says hi, Brad, shouting beers.
Yeah, that never happens. So don't listen there. You know how expensive it is for beer at the stadium,
It is. It is.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight and join us on the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at your convenience on all the podcast feeds. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Yeah, everyone, cheers for joining us again tonight, and good night, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Night, everyone.